So here's the gun. The main power is right here, this big red switch. Hopefully it's within reaching distance of your thumb.
Ready.
And that'll power on the lights and the headlights, the soundboard, which is all the firing sequence, and the hollow sight also, which I'll get to in a little bit. The selector switch for semi and full auto.
Full auto. Semi-auto.
You have fire mode, which selects which type of gun. There's 4 gun types and then a stun sound, so it's set to Imperial Blaster right now, which is the default.
Sniper mode.
Sniper mode is a more conventional sounding gun.
Pulse rifle.
Pulse rifle from Aliens.
Plasma blaster.
And that's kind of a custom sound.
Stun mode.
Stun mode, there's one set for stun.
Imperial blaster.
And then of course the full auto versions of each one.
Full auto. Sniper mode.
Also there's this forward grip so you can do the Vasquez or Thor Ragnarok thing. That's always cool.
Pulse rifle. Plasma blaster.
So the way the trigger works is it's a 2-position trigger. Obviously back is to fire it. Once you run it empty, then you have to reload it, or in this case recharge, and that's just pushing it forward. So
Recharging. Ready.
all the gun sounds, they share a magazine, so once one is empty, then basically they're all empty until it recharges itself. There's no magazine to swap out, it's all internal. So once you fire basically it empty,
Pulse rifle. Energy depleted.
you'll get the energy depleted.
Energy depleted.
And again, since they're all connected,
Plasma blaster. Energy depleted.
so once it's empty, you have to either wait until it recharges itself, or you can just jump straight to the recharge.
Recharging. Ready.
So it's a push forward and release.
Recharging. Ready.
And the side effect of that is that you can do that Hollywood thing where just the act of pulling a gun on somebody will automatically cock it. On the other side, we have the brightness and volume. Brightness obviously is for the lights and the headlight. Those are all the external lights. They're all connected. And then the volume is if you want to shoot at the TV and you want to be quiet. There's a laser on the front here too. It's also labeled. So turn it on here, and it's the projected laser. So the way the hollow sights work is there's a little switch right here, and you can use that to select what shape reticle you want. So if you want crosshairs, if you want a circle, or just a dot, that's what this little switch is here for. Again, it's all tied to the main power, so once the main power is on, it's powered on, and then vice versa. Once it's off, it's off. Alright, the sling. The sling is on 2 quick disconnects. There's a little button that will allow you to put it into the hole, and then your hand should be able to reach around nicely, and it's right here so that it's a nice convenient position for you to use the forward handle and just go full auto sweep all over somebody. One feature of the trigger is that it'll detect if you're going to be doing a whole bunch of individual shots. So if you're going to be doing like a John Wick sequence where it'll detect that, and it'll basically fire off a shot every time you pull the trigger and release the trigger. So which is handy if you want to do a John Wick sequence. And I think that's all I can think of for now, so...
Okay, so when we started talking about the Hyper Collab, the gun was originally going to be the main piece, but somewhere along the way it all just got lumped into Hyper Armor. In the end, most of the time was spent making the gun, since it had so many elements like the design, construction, lights and sound wiring, and the soundboard configuration too. I mean, so much stuff. Overall, I worked on everything for a little over 4 months, but the gun was easily 75% of that. The design was an old concept idea from my Blastech E57 that I never used, but I still like the shape. Hyper Fangirl's colors are orange, pink, red, black, and even though the original plan was to be pink with rainbows, the incorporation of her costume colors just sort of took over. So a big challenge was establishing major elements of the gun. How can I make this look distinct? Does it have a recognizable silhouette? I mean, to put it stupidly, I wanted it to look as cool as a Nerf gun without actually looking like an existing Nerf gun, if that makes sense. Nerf guns have a distinct shape with lots and lots of texture greebling, and I can do distinct shape, but it's surprisingly difficult to make texture greebling look natural and cool. Plus, everything had to be functional. So basically, I was aiming for a happy medium that looked awesome, but wasn't going to totally destroy me when I tried to install electronics or paint it. I made a cardboard outline for a template, and then I cut out layers of 6mm Sintra, 10mm EVA foam, and 2mm Sintra. The multiple layers were there so I could cut out windows for the light panels, trenches for the wires, holes for the switches, and cavities for the electronics. The placement of the controls didn't really change too much. That was deliberate for easy access. I made some removable panels to go over the electronics and the trigger. The light panels got glued down, and they're a combination of 2mm Sintra, 1/8" Plastizote, and clear resin. And I thought I achieved a nice uniform glow, but in a different light it looked like there was corn on the cob, but by then it was too late. I had planned to have dimmable lights, since the Velma PKE meter was kind of finicky with lights and cameras. I tried a multi-position switch with varying resistors. I tried half a dozen potentiometers. By the way, you can't just wire a potentiometer into lights. You'll get smoke. I finally found some PWM speed controllers on Amazon. They're variable voltage, so they work perfectly for the gun, which is 7.4 volts, and the light up armor, which is all 9 volts. Again, all the orange lights are analog 5-volt strip. I wired everything in serial. The speaker is vented on both sides, so you get sound everywhere, but it's aimed out the right side, so if you seal off the left side, you can get a lot more bass if you need it. I included a cover for the left side speaker, and by the way, you can safely use a potentiometer inline for volume. I made this barrel cage thing because I needed a way to attach the barrels to the front of the gun, and I couldn't just screw the barrel on because of the layering. The happy accident with this was that after cutting the holes, I could show more of the barrel laying up. Most of the greebling ended up just being scrap Sintra, EVA, styrene. The only trash bits that I used were hand soap pump tubes, disposable barbecue lighter gas reservoir, and an anodized thumb screw. And I don't know what this cheek rest butt pad thing is. I just cut out a shape that I thought looked cool. There are wood strips running along the bottom and the top, and those are attaching the Picatinny rails. And because of the layering, I couldn't just screw something onto it, or so I thought. I glued 1/4" poplar strips to the 6mm center layer so that there was something substantial to screw the aluminum plates to. The aluminum plates and the wood strip are what the Picatinny rails are actually screwed into. The HoloSight, also from Amazon, has a 3-volt battery, and that's entirely too easy to leave on, so I wanted the HoloSight to share the main battery power. It's pretty easy. I just soldered wires to the battery leads and ran them to the 3.3 pad to the blaster core. The challenge was coming up with a solution that didn't involve exposed wires. I tried this enclosure thing, that's a bottle cap, but it just kept snapping, so I finally cut out the bottle cap, trimmed the edges, and then made this box rail thing to cover everything. And since everything is all black and it all blends together and it looks like this very complex sighting system. There's also some non-illuminated LEDs, some green and reds, as an homage to the original Blade Runner pistol. The muzzle was a little bit of a debate. I started out with just the silver aluminum part, and then it became this PVC thing with Sintra strips on it. And then it was a combination of the two, and then it was no muzzle device. And finally, I just went back to the silver thing because it's simple, it looked the best. Plus, I wanted to include a small roll of orange tape for cotton going, and PVC would have to be painted, and I didn't want a chance chipping or leaving residue, so aluminum was just the best option. Somewhere along the way, the angled foregrip went from this rounded ergonomic one to the more mag-pulley looking one. It fit better physically and aesthetically, it felt better holding it. Plus, Tamara loves Apex Legends, and this grip is all over that game. So even if she didn't outright recognize it, the overall aesthetic would be familiar. After I taped off the appropriate sections, I hit it with 3 coats of white Plastidip. I used leather paints because I planned on using it on the flexible armor parts, so it just made sense to use it on everything. I don't know what I was going for with the color shapes. I just wanted something that looked good and helped augment the greebling. This shot reminds me of the commanding cube from Portal, and nothing too complex because it had to translate to the armor pieces also. The labels were printed out with a label maker and then slathered with Mod Podge to keep them in place. All of the controls were labeled except for the reticle select, and that was already marked. The sling is 1/4-inch heavy canvas, belt material basically. The red things are metal belt tips. I just powder coated them red. The rear sling point was attached with a 1024 by 1-inch screw, which is long enough to reach the 6mm core, and then I just backfilled everything with Elmer's Pro Bond, and it's really solid now. I found this case, again, on Amazon. It was the perfect size, and it came with uncut foam, not just uncut, but unperforated, which means I could cut the exact shape that I wanted, plus all the spots for accessories, which were very numerous. I had the comlink, the Nintendo controller, the cogging handle, the collapsible forward grip, stand, sling, and like half a dozen other things that are in the little compartment under the controller. And like with all projects, there are more things planned that should actually fit in the project, but you don't know until you actually build it. I wanted an ammo counter bar graph that shows you the energy level, and I had it started, but it ended up not working out amazingly. I ran out of room, imagine that. One of the ideas for reloading was an overheat function, so instead of empty, it would be overheat, and there would be an opening door that would vent smoke and light, and sound effects would be steam, so to simulate cooling the gun. And also a rear flip-up handle for hip fire, like a minigun. It would have a second trigger and mode select on the grip also. Could have been cool. Oh well, maybe next time. Speaking of next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.